This may come as a surprise to you.
The timing was ironic.
But the recession is officially over.
The announcement on Monday that the Great Recession is over.
I'm one of your middle-class Americans.
Just as President Obama got an earful at a Washington, D.C. town hall meeting carried on CNBC.
My husband and I have joked for years that we thought we were well beyond the hot dogs and beans era of our lives. But quite frankly, that might be where we're headed again.
Velma Hart dared to say what a lot of Americans are thinking.
Mr. President, I need you to answer this honestly. Is this my new reality?
Call it what you like, the new reality, the new normal. If you're middle class, the answer is probably yes. The debt-driven boom we came to think of as normal isn't coming back anytime soon.
We are dreaming if we think the solution is a quick one.
University of Maryland economics professor Carmen Reinhardt co-authored This Time is Different, an 800-year survey of financial crises.
Recoveries from severe financial crises have historically not been swift. It's not a matter of months. It's not a matter of even a couple of years.
Reinhardt and her husband Vincent, a resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, recently compared major global meltdowns since the 1929 stock market crash.
The message was basically pretty grim, that economies after a big financial crisis tend to grow about a percentage point slower than in the previous decade, and that the unemployment rate tends to be much higher.
For an entire decade.
For an entire decade.
Typically, in a business cycle, we get back to the same economic path we were on. People get their old jobs back, or nearly their old jobs. But this time around, very much like the Great Depression, we are not going to be able to go back on the same road.
Former Clinton Labor Secretary Robert Reich, in a new book, points out another ominous parallel between the Great Depression and the Great Recession, its cause.
More and more of the income that was generated by the economy went to people at the top.
In the last century, there were only 2 years, in 1928, just before the Great Crash, and then again in 2007, during which the richest 1% were taking home nearly a quarter of the entire income of the nation.
The typical CEO is up to 350 times the salary and benefits of the typical worker. Last year, when most Americans were suffering, the top 25 hedge fund managers each earned $1 billion. $1 billion would pay the salaries of something like 20,000 teachers.
I pledge allegiance.
That wage inequality, Reich argues, is at the heart of our economic woes. And to fix things, we need to pay those teachers and the rest of the middle class more, not less, so they can spend enough to kickstart the economy. And yes, that means higher taxes for the rich.
The economy depends 70% of demand on consumers, and those consumers are essentially the middle class. People who are very rich, they spend a much smaller proportion of their income.
No recovery will take place if we impose new taxes on the people we need to create jobs.
In the partisan battle over the future of the Bush tax cuts, Reich disagrees.
We provided a huge tax cut to the rich, and nothing trickled down. After 2001, median wages actually dropped.
The top tax rate now, 35%. If the Bush tax cuts are allowed to expire, nearly 40%. For the record, under President Eisenhower, a Republican, the top rate was 91%, really. Middle-class wages were rising, and the rich actually got richer.
Henry Ford understood this. He paid his workers $5 a day at the Highland Park Model T plant. That was a lot of money. That was about twice as much as the typical worker was earning. He said, you know, I'm going to make a lot of money because my workers are going to earn enough that they can turn around and buy the Model Ts that they are making. And you know something? Henry Ford was right.
Getting anybody to buy anything lately has been a challenge. New York's Fashion Week just ended. Some of the collections were colorful. Many were less edgy, more classic. According to fashion analyst David Wolf.
Right now, we are going back to the idea of investment clothing. You don't want to buy something disposable because it ends up costing you too much money.
In a recent survey, more than 6 out of 10 Americans said they've cut back on their spending since the recession began in December 2007. A major casualty, the housing market. And here's where American ingenuity comes in. In 2007, just as the recession hit, Blue Homes of Waltham, Massachusetts, started manufacturing what it calls the anti-McMansion, a line of high-quality modular homes.
Instead of spending $600,000 for a family that can really only afford, $250,000 home, spend $250,000.
Maura McCarthy is co-founder of Blue Homes.
We saw this opportunity coming where, there was a crash in the housing market. All the big McMansions were going down.
Yes, she did say opportunity.
Let me just pull off the roof.
Units can be customized with the click of a mouse. They literally fold up so they can be trucked to home sites.
I expect to do about 30 this year, about 60 next year, and probably tripling or quadrupling that.
That's meant 30 new jobs already at the factory in Springfield, Massachusetts, where with unemployment over 13%, the old jobs are gone.
There are always phoenixes that come out of the flames and that come out of the downfall of the economy. And we felt like what that was a real fire in the belly of Americans to want to live differently.
A couple of hours from Phoenix, Arizona, you can see on a larger scale what possibility looks like in the aftermath of the Great Recession. 350,000 solar panels covering 200 acres of desert, producing enough electricity to power 6,000 homes.
So red in this case is good.
Rob Gillette is CEO of First Solar, one of the 10 fastest growing companies in the United States, according to Fortune magazine.
Over the last 5 years, First Solar started and went public and had a handful of millions of revenue, and this year will be $2.6 billion in revenues.
First Solar makes, installs, and manages solar energy systems worldwide. At its U.S. manufacturing plant in Perrysburg, Ohio, it employs 1,200 people and expects to hire more.
I've talked to a few that used to work on the line for Jeep or Ford, and now they work for us.
The stock market closed the week up on encouraging news about the economy. Right now, the new normal is shorthand for hard times. But times change.
Before we get too fatalistic, our market economy has historically proven to be pretty resilient.
Economist Vincent Reinhardt.
10 years from now, we will be more resilient and better able to take advantage of good things that can happen.